Principals, and welcome to the NAESP podcast. My name is Rachel George, and I'm an educational leader in Oregon and also an NAESP fellow.
And my name is Adam Welcome. I am an educator in California, not too far actually from our guest today, which is super fun, and also a fellow with NAESP in the Innovation Center. Rachel, I've been practicing NAESP for so long. I've had a trouble with NAESP, and I'm trying to say it just faster and more fluently. I know it's going to make you happy. Everybody out there, I've been practicing. So there you go.
Hey, good job practicing. I like it. Because it's okay that we're not there yet. So that's perfect. And good job dropping a hint about who might be on our podcast today with our little hint of California. So we're really excited, as always, to bring you this episode so we can talk about real ideas with amazing principals, or folks that support principals, or folks that are in education, or heck, maybe even people that are outside of education that have great tips for us to be innovative leaders, to really honestly make your leadership stronger and, again, more innovative.
Yeah, 100%. So today on the show, we have Dr. Shana Henry. Everybody go to Twitter right now. She has the easiest Twitter. Dr. Shana Henry is actually her Twitter. Shares awesome stuff. Currently a principal, transitioning to a supportive role for principals. Also the host of Principles of Success podcast. Shana has a really, really awesome podcast. You definitely need to check it out. Just go to Apple, iTunes, Spotify, kind of wherever you listen to podcasts. Type in Principles Pals of Success podcast. Shana, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you both.
Yeah, it's so weird how the world works out. You were in Louisville. I was in Louisville. Rachel was in Louisville. We didn't see each other in Louisville because those conferences are so big. So sometimes it just takes a virtual meetup like this one to be able to connect. And we only live about 45 minutes away from each other, but it's great to have you on the show. So Shana, what are you thinking about right now as a educational leader, planning, staff, kids, district stuff. And I know you're transitioning, but just put your principal hat on. What were you thinking, or what would you tell other people that you're coaching to be thinking about, right now? This episode will be coming out once school's already started. But what would you tell people to be thinking about right now?
And a caveat, she's transitioning to a principal coaching role. So she's still in education, but supporting principals. So
yes, thank you, Rachel.
Shana, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. I'm thinking so much right now. I'm thinking, first of all, to expect the unexpected. I feel like we came off this last year and we were all going home to welcome our kids back, and we just did not know what to expect. And for me, after 18 years as a principal, it was the hardest year I've ever had. There was no way to anticipate all of the challenges that came last year. So I feel like this year, expect the unexpected. It could be better. It could be worse. Right now, my school is short a number of teachers, a number of classified folks. Like, we're just trying to survive, and we haven't even started the school year yet. So take it slow, because other things might be coming.
So expect the unexpected and take it slow. I think those are spot on. I'm curious, what tips besides taking it slow could help principals? Because it does feel like we're playing dodgeball, but we don't know where the balls are coming from. And then we turn around and get whacked in the face. So what are some tips and thoughts, especially as you're kind of shifting to supporting principals, might you suggest?
I think you don't have to go it alone. I think that's one of the biggest tips I would say. I feel like the principal role is often the loneliest job, even if you have a vice principal or more than one. It can feel like the weight is completely on your shoulders because you want to take care of your people, right? You want to feel like don't burden them. But I also feel like rely on the people, the strength of your team as much as possible. Where you might be focusing on filling vacancies, rely on your teacher leaders to help pull those pre-service staff things together, help with your culture climate, help with new student onboarding, like really find the strengths of your team so that you are really working collectively to problem solve, especially as you head into this school year. I think that is going to be really key to find strengths of the folks on your team.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome advice, not trying to do everything yourself. I don't know about you, but, I totally agree with you, Shana, that like it is probably the loneliest job. It's actually why I almost left education after my first year as a principal, because I didn't really like connect with all of my colleagues, which was hard. And I realized that I had to look out there into other areas to really find people to connect with, and also quickly realize that they didn't need to be in my district, or I didn't need to see them every day, but you can connect with other people. And I think this podcast is a really great example of that. Like, let's use technology that we didn't have 20 years ago to like really break down those doors. How do you handle stressful situations as a principal, or how would you, now coach other principals to handle stressful situations? We've all been there. There are 10 things happening at once. The police are there. CPS is coming. You have a parent that's yelling. Maybe three to five of those are pretty high level intense. How do you work through them all? What advice would you give to other school leaders as they navigate those stressful situations?
I'm laughing because I probably have had a situation where all of those things are happening really all at the same time.
Oh, Shana, we all have. Don't worry.
Yes, like it's par for the course now, right? That's like normal in our world. I think it's about prioritizing. I really do. I think it's just like a to-do list. Like, what is the most urgent issue right now? What can wait? And so helping to manage those pieces. I have not been good with handling stress over the 18 years. It has been something I've needed to learn a lot. And I think it's about priority. Also being willing to accept help. That has been something I've struggled with a lot. Again, going back to just feeling like you have to take it all on yourself. And so being able to see who can help you, who can take some things off your plate, who can help you triage in some other areas. I think that's really important, is that two-way help. You could accept help and you can give help as well.
So I feel like I have a million questions for you, and I'm just loving what you're putting down. So I'm going to try to just center it on one. You talked about the importance of connecting with folks. You talked about kind of that delegation and keeping it simplified with priorities, kind of in a nutshell. Who are people that you do delegate to or utilize with their strengths? Because I'm thinking of a principal that's overwhelmed and has those 10 things, and they're like, Rachel, all of it's important, which we hear oftentimes, right, as we coach principals, and it's hard to figure out what's a 911, 211, 411, or whatever that might be for you. Who do you reach out to? And then once you can kind of frame that, I'd love to also hear, who do you connect with professionally to help keep you stable? Because it is a lonely job.
Yeah. I think on my school side, I'm really blessed to have a vice principal. At some schools, I did not have one. So I know some people listening are saying, but I'm the only person. I'm solo. But I do rely on my vice principal, but I also rely on my office team. My office team, they are front and center of everything that's happening. So they can see when my stress level is elevated. They can see when there's other things coming on board, and they are a team. And quite often, what can I help you with, Dr. Henry? What can I take off your plate? They are very helpful. I also think outside of the office, you have grade level leaders and department leaders that can help with work with the teachers. I think that's a big support. So I think those pieces. And then outside of the school, my middle school principal team, I rely on them so much. Outside of our standard district meetings, we go to breakfast once a month. We do that because we need each other. We need that space to be able to ask questions, vent, to just have that companionship. And that has really fed my soul a lot. And then you talked about the professional part, and Adam had mentioned Louisville, and I want to kind of circle back to that a little bit. I had the opportunity to go to the conference with a fellow principal who is starting her second year. And it was so amazing to watch her through the conference because she was just soaking everything in. I did not have that conference when I first started my principalship. And my reflection was, gosh, I think those first bumpy years would have been so different if I had had that opportunity to connect with other principals, hear from Simon Sinek, like all of those pieces. And so I think for me, conferences feed my soul, Twitter chats feed my soul, like just an opportunity to connect with people that are not in my district, but are going through the same challenges.
Yeah, you are speaking our language, Shana. I know I've said multiple times on the podcast that my first NAESP conference, like 7 years ago in Long Beach, absolutely changed my life. In California, we have the AXA Association, and in Oregon, Rachel has COSA, and every state has their kind of the NAESP, NASSP affiliate. But just being on that national level with people from all over, it just definitely changes it. So I said at the beginning of the podcast that you have a podcast, and obviously Rachel and I are a fan of podcasts, hence that's how we're meeting today. So how did you get started yourself with a podcast, and why are you taking the time to plan and interview? I loved your recent episode with Ida Carter. I had Ida on one of my other podcasts, and she is amazing. So how did it get started, and why?
So the why behind it was a few years ago, I was in a principalship, one before this last one I was in. And it was a weird time. I was feeling like, just like Adam said, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be in this gig. Like I'm just struggling. I'm challenging. I'm tired. And I came across a book, Leading While Female, and it talked all about just the women's trajectory in education, talking about 27% women superintendents, but 6% are women of color. And that really spoke to me as a woman of color in terms of just representation and not seeing a lot of people who looked like me in districts or in spaces. And I said, but I know we're out there. I know we're out there and we're doing hard work. And so the podcast was born to be able to highlight these amazing women, particularly women of color, who are doing great things at their schools. And so I wanted to highlight them each week and tell their leadership story, but also share strategies that we could all benefit from. And so that's been the reason behind it. And I have to tell you, it has fed my soul. Like, it is my weekly PD. I feel a little selfish because I'm bringing it to the masses, but I'm also gaining so much from it. So that's why the podcast, and that's what has kept me going every single.
I love it. That actually gave me chills. I love that book, by the way. So listeners, if you haven't picked up the book, Leading While Female, and it's done by Corwin, and it came out, at least I picked it up during the shutdown. So like spring of 2020, phenomenal book. Yeah. We actually use that as a reference when my Elise and I were writing She Leads. So great book. And I think there's been even a handful of book studies across the nation that have been done on that. So awesome. So our last question for you, we've talked about lonely job, prioritizing, connecting with others. I would love to hear, would you consider yourself, you have two choices on this, a hard worker or a workaholic? I'd love to hear why, and then maybe how you try to balance yourself a little bit, because we're heading into a season, or we might already be in a season, where folks are grinding. A startup is super hard, a lot of hours, even for those that have really streamlined their schedule and have mastered their morning and have a lot of self-care. So what are your overall thoughts, and then drill it down to this fall for us?
Yeah. Wow. What a big question. So Rachel, yes, I am a complete workaholic, 100%. And that is, I think that's cultural. Like, that's just how I was raised, right? I saw my parents working 7 days a week. They were first generation immigrants. Like, that's just what I saw. So I think that's just been embedded in me over the years. And so I'm always working. So balance is a tricky word for me. And I've learned to know that that is subjective. Like, it's okay to define that for you. I used to think like, oh, that's what balance is. Oh, I have to figure that out. So for me, this last year, I learned a lot about finding balance that worked for me. And I twisted it to, what did I do to find joy in the school year? And so it was really about embedding some different types of things. So like my son decided we needed to start watching an episode of Seinfeld before we went to bed every night. So that brought us some joy and some humor to be able to do that. Or the monthly breakfast with the principals, because that fed my soul. I got a little walking treadmill here for under my desk, like to be able to move my body. I'm not Adam. I do not run like crazy miles. I saw before this recording he was running and I felt really lazy, but I didn't this morning.
All good. Don't let it make you feel bad. He can do a marathon on the spot.
I know. I believe it.
Day, who knows?
I believe it. So those are the types of things I'm thinking going into this year, of just really being intentional of the things that bring me joy will bring me balance for me.
Yeah, I love that. Dr. Shana Henry. And, my running is not meant to make anybody else feel bad. I know you're not saying that, ladies. I know you're not saying that. I run for myself, and I decided, and I'm not defending myself right now. I'm making a joke, but I decided a long time. You don't make
me feel bad. So, I mean, we're
Thank you. We were actually supposed to run a marathon together, Rachel and I, the Eugene Marathon, and then COVID canceled it. So I know you and I have talked about it, Rachel. We need to set a date
we're doing one this school year.
We need to. So at Dr. Shana Henry, also be sure to check out Shana's podcast, Principles of Success. And speaking of the NAESP conference, we hope that everybody listening, Shana, we hope that you will be in Maryland next year. It's going to be even more east on the East Coast, which is kind of tough sometimes for us West Coasters, but it's nice to get back there. It's never too early to sign up. And you said something too, Shana, about bringing along a colleague. And I know, Rachel and I had so many conversations with people that were at the conference and people that were there by themselves, which is great. But when you have a friend, especially a colleague in your organization, quote unquote, back home, when you go back, it's so much easier to talk about the things that you heard and saw and did and learned than if like, oh, you should have been there. It's like surfing, like, oh my gosh, yesterday was amazing. You should have been there. But when you can be there with somebody, it just makes the learning and the situation so much better and so much deeper. So bring a friend and come to Maryland next year. Rachel, Shana, on behalf of NASP, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. And everybody, we hope that you have an absolutely amazing day.